Remember, is going to discuss the meaning of the verse in chapter 4, verse 33. In verse 33, he says that the verse goes like this. Shreyan dravya maya yajjat jnana yajjat parantapa. Okay? Jnana yajja parantapa. Shreyan. The sacrifice of knowledge is better than the sacrifice of any object, physical object. Okay? Sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. It is the all works end in the sacrifice of knowledge. In other words, when you get realization through knowledge, then all the effects of karma, okay, karma kilam, they are all burned to ashes. So knowledge is the highest sacrifice. That's the whole idea. So this is what Sheffield is going to discuss. It does not mean to say that you don't need to do works anymore. That is the interpretation given by the Buddhists and the Mayavadins. Okay? The Advaita also to a certain extent. But this is, Gita is saying that works, the effect of works disappears. The karma is cancelled for those who have reached the peak of knowledge. Tarika, you raised an interesting question the other day, and you said that difficulties are the result of karma. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So, afterwards I was thinking about it, and it's like this. It is true what you are saying. The difficulties that you face are the result of your own karma in the past. That is correct. Okay? But at the same time, it depends on how you look at it. Whether you look at it below and whether you look at it above. If you look at it below, then you see that your difficulty is the result of your own past actions. Okay? Law of karma holds true. But if you look above, okay, you see that the difficulty is an opportunity for you to progress. So it's like a glass which is half empty or half full. If you are a pessimist, you will say the glass is half empty. And if you are a positivist, you are an optimist, you will say the glass is full. So there is no contradiction between the two. There are only two ways of looking at it.
Yeah, Rangada.
Yeah. All right. So now we continue.
In last month's Mother India, there is a very small, beautiful essay by the Divine Mother on difficulties in yoga.
Yes.
And how one faces it. And the greater the difficulties, the greater is the victory waiting for you. And the greater will be the grace for you. So just read that little, it's just 2-3 paragraphs written by the mother in last month's Mother India.
Okay. You have the text?
Yes, yes. Shall I read it? Shall I read it? Just a moment.
Yeah.
Just a moment. Huh?
Yes, yes, yes.
I got it.
Read it.
Difficulties in yoga. The nature of your difficulty indicates the nature of the victory you will gain. The victory you will exemplify in yoga. Thus, if there is persistent selfishness, it points to a realization of universality as your most prominent achievement in the future. And when selfishness is there, you have also the power to reverse this very difficulty into its opposite, a victory of utter wideness. When you have something to realize, You will have in you just the characteristic which is the contradiction of that something. Face to face with the defect, the difficulty, you say, oh, I am like that. How awful it is. But you ought to see the truth of the situation. Say to yourself, my difficulty shows me clearly what I have ultimately to represent. To reach the absolute negation of it, the quality at the other pole. This is my mission. Even in ordinary life, we have sometimes the experience of contraries. He who is very timid and has no courage in front of circumstances proves capable of bearing the most. To one who has the aspiration for the divine, the difficulty which is always before him is the door by which he will attain God in his own individual manner. It is his particular path towards the divine realization. There is also the fact that if somebody has 100 difficulties, it means he will have a tremendous realization, provided, of course, there are in him patience and endurance, and he keeps the aspiring flame of Agni burning against those defects. And remember, the grace of the divine is generally proportioned to your difficulties. This is questions and answers 1929 to 1931.
Yeah. Mother is always so clear and so concise, so accurate. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, we come back to our essays. Okay? So I'm reading the second paragraph of chapter 20, okay? Equality and knowledge. So this verse that he has said, okay, he is going to discuss. I'm reading the last paragraph, last two lines of the previous paragraph. Okay? All his work disappears completely as soon as done, suffers laya. Laya means dissolution, as one might say, in the being of the Brahman, praviliyate. It has no reactionary consequence on the soul of the apparent doer. Apparent doer, because it is universal nature which is doing. Okay? The work is done by the Lord through his nature. It is no longer personal to the human instrument. The work itself becomes but power of the nature and substance of the being of the Brahman. So this is the last paragraph, the last two lines of the previous paragraph. I go to the next paragraph. It is in this sense that the Gita is speaking when it says that all the totality of work finds its completion, culmination, end in knowledge. Okay? Sarvam karmakhilam jnane parisamapyate. And he is now quoting from the Gita. As a fire kindled, turns to ashes its fuel, so the fire of knowledge burns all ashes burns all works to ashes. I'll read that again. I made a mess of it. As a fire kindled turns to ashes its fuel, so the fire of knowledge turns all works to ashes. So once you have the knowledge and you need, then, in other words, you are free. When you are free, that is exactly what is meant by freedom. You realize that you are the soul, you are the self, and then whatever the body-mind life is working has no effect on you. That's what it is.
Rangada, Rangada, it is turns or burns?
Pardon?
It is turns or burns. As a fire.
I can't hear you.
As a fire kindled turns to ashes its fuel, so the fire of knowledge turns all works to ashes. Is it turns or burns?
I have turns.
Yeah, okay.
I have turns to ashes.
Both the times it is turns, no? Both the times it is turns.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Both are valid. This is very often it happens, okay? Yeah. I think in the Gita, it must be burns. Just 1 second, let me check. Okay, 37. Yeah, yatha endhasi samidho agnid bhasmasat kurute. So bhasmasat kurute is very clearly burns. Chandra is used the word turns.
Yeah.
Or it could be, I am reading the SABCL. It could be, but burns and turns have been changed. I'll have to check that in the CWSA. It'll be interesting to see. I'll see that and get back to you next time. Okay.
In CWSA, it is turns, Rangada.
Pardon?
In CWSA, it is turns.
Turn, huh? Turn and
Yeah,
not burn.
turns. TURNS. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
burns. I have the CWSA.
Same those original interpretation. Okay. By
Turns into
this,
ashes, so becomes Samvidha or whatever.
yeah, meaning is the same, word is different. By this, it is not at all meant that when knowledge is complete, there is cessation from works. This is what the Buddhists say, and this is also what the Mayavadins say. Okay, some of the ones who follow the Jnana Yoga path, they say that there is no work to be done at all after you reach liberation. So, the Gita is saying, and Sriyamda also is supporting the Gita fully, that works can continue, and the work can also be very meaningful, okay? Not useless like the other lesson, not mechanical and only practical works. It can be worked with the divine, then it becomes meaningful. By this, it is not at all meant that when knowledge is complete, there is cessation from works. What is meant is made clear by the Gita when it says that he who has destroyed all doubt by knowledge and has by yoga given up all works and is in possession of the self is not bound by his works. That's what it meant. He is not bound by his works. Not that he has to stop working. Okay? Yoga sanyasya sanyasta. Okay, sanyasta karmanam atmanam na karmani nibadhanti. This is very similar. The yoga sanyasta. Okay? Having given up, settled, established in yoga, the karmanam atmanam, the one who is doing works, these works don't bind him anymore. Even if he is free, he can continue to work. That is what it meant. In the Isha Upanishad also very clearly, right in the beginning, it says, karma na lipyate nare. Karma na lipyate. Don't think this idea has been very much broadcast very much in India that once you have liberation, you don't need to work anymore. Okay? So this is the Gita is contradicting, and Sriyamda contradicts even more forcefully. In fact, it goes to the extent of saying that you must work. You must do work, and not for yourself, but for the divine. The quality of work changes completely. In normal life, you are working only for yourself. But once you have reached liberation and you have reached the highest level of your potential, then you have to work for the divine and not for yourself, and help the others. What is meant is made clear, that I have read. Yoga sanyasya karmanam atmanam na karmani nibadhanti. And that he whose self has become the self of all existences acts and yet is not affected by his works, is not caught in them, receives from them no soul ensnaring reaction, is not caught in them, receives from them no soul ensnaring reaction. Kurvannapi na lipyate. So it's obvious, because when you are not identified with your body mind life, how can the results of the body mind life actions affect you? It won't affect you because you are now not identified with the body mind life. So that's a very almost physical fact. Somebody else's suffering or somebody else's pleasure is not going to affect you because you're not identified with that person. So it's as simple as that. And that he whose Self has become the self of all existences. In other words, the cognitive consciousness. Okay? Acts and yet is not affected by works, is not caught in them, receives from them no soul ensnaring reaction. Because the soul is not ensnared now. It is not ensnared by the body mind life. Normally, for the normal man, his soul is imprisoned in the body mind life. But now the soul has come out and has realized that it is itself free. Then nothing binds it. I read the next sentence. Therefore, it says, the yoga of works is better than the physical renunciation of works. Because while sannyasa is difficult for embodied beings who must do works so long as they are in the body, yoga of works is entirely sufficient and it rapidly and easily brings the soul to Brahman. So, the path of renunciation in the Jnana Yoga, you need to give up all works. That also a path to liberation. That's a narrower path because you are going away from the physical world and attaining knowledge. If your aim is to go away from the physical world, that's fine, no problem. But by to go away from the physical world, you can get realization and come back into the physical world and do God's work. Okay? God's work is not being said by the Gita, but it says, Loka hite rata. It is doing good for humanity and for the maintenance of order in the world. Okay? So these are the two things that the Gita doesn't say clearly that you have to do works for God. Okay? Srivastava says that very clearly. Probably it means the same thing. When you are helping humanity, you are doing God's work. But the clarity is very clear in Srivastava's statement of the fact. Okay? That yoga of works is, we have seen, the offering of all action to the Lord. Now we are explaining what is karma yoga. That yoga of works is, we have seen, the offering of all action to the Lord. Now, the other day, Tarika asked a very interesting question. You can offer physical things, but how do you offer your thoughts and your emotions? So here also, the same question comes up. How do you offer your actions to the Lord? The best way is to remember the divine all the time. If you remember the divine, while you are doing a work, you start and you say to yourself that I am doing this not for myself, but for the divine. It's the offering. That is the offering. So turn your action towards the divine. Okay? And if you can put it into words, even better. I am doing this for you, not for myself. Okay? It can be in spirit, it can even be in words, or it can be in action. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
How does one sacrifice knowledge?
That's exactly what we're discussing. That was the question that Tarika asked the other day. Na? So, when you are, I put it in a very interesting way. The question also was mine for a long time. Okay? When I am reading, for instance, something, I am reading Sri Aurobindo, and I don't understand what he's saying. If I ask for help, okay, suddenly I understand the meaning of what he's saying. Then there should be gratefulness. Na? So, oh, you have given me the knowledge of which I did not know earlier. So that you offer to the divine in gratitude. That's one way of explaining this. Okay? But the other is that whatever you are doing, whether you are reading or writing or offering your works or whatever, you remember the divine. If you remember the divine all the time and do things for himself, then automatically your knowledge, your actions and your emotions will all be done for the Lord and not by yourself. It's true that when you think of it normally, it does puzzle you. How to offer knowledge, how to offer your devotion to the Lord. Turn them towards Him. Remember, that's the first. And if you remember, slowly, the remembrance itself will turn everything towards the divine, and then the question disappears. That's true. So I read the next one. The yoga of works we have seen, offering of all action to the Lord, which induces at its culmination an inner and not an outer, a spiritual, not a physical giving up of works into the Brahman, into the being of the Lord. Brahmani adhaya karmani mai sanyasya. So they are explaining, when works are thus reposed in the Brahman. And what do you mean by repose in the Brahman? Again, we can ask. We can say, while you are doing something, okay, you do that something by remembering the Lord and say you are doing it for Him. That is what it meant by repose in the Brahman. Otherwise, normally, our actions are all reposed in ourselves, our own ego. We are doing it for our own ego and our own satisfaction. Okay? Even when I'm doing examining, I'm doing an examination, I want success. When I'm reading something, it is for success. That is egoism. So this is, you are doing it for the Lord and not for yourself. Not easy. Nobody is saying it's easy. But by remembrance, it can come. Remembrance is a very powerful method. Remember and offer. These are the three words that Swami uses very often in his letters. Remember and offer. And at the end, give thanks. Hear what he says. When works are thus reposed on the Brahman, the personality of the instrumental doer ceases. Though he acts, he does nothing. For he has given up not only the fruits of his works, but the works themselves and the doing of them to the Lord. The divine then takes the burden of his works from him. The supreme becomes the doer and the act and the result. So, this is what is meant by remembering and offering, remembering and offering. When you do that, and it's one of the big realizations in yoga is when you realize that you are not a doer. When you get liberation and you go up, you are, remember, immutable, featureless, and actionless. So you are only watching. And if you are watching, you are not doing anything. So who is doing the body, mind, life is going on acting? It is universal nature which is making your mind to think. It is forcing your vital being to have emotions and sensations and your body to act. Okay? So this is it. You realize that you are not the doer. Non-doership is a big realization in yoga. Then also, naturally, you realize that all that you thought you were doing is not you. Your ego gets a big blow. Okay? So, oh, I was not doing. So even the success is not mine. The honor that I have got is also not mine. Okay? I don't deserve it. So this is. I told you a very interesting story about this. So there was this. It's very interesting. It is apt. Okay, this story. This in Savitri's music. Okay, it is a lady. Yasmin knows Chom's mother. Okay? Anima Ganguly. She used to be her voice. Okay? In most of Sunil's music, it is her voice. But there was Shahnadi, who was also a very good singer. Okay? And she, one day, someone came to her and told her that your music, the way you sing in Savitri is wonderful, wonderful. So she didn't reply and she didn't say that it is not my voice. She didn't say. And later on, she went and told Minidi that, somebody came and congratulated me for the songs in Savitri. And I took the praise. So I did not say that it is not mine. Now that's exactly what we are doing. We are taking the credit for all the action that universal nature is doing in us. But Shahnadi had the frankness and the sincerity to come and tell this to Animadi. I was laughing her head off. And she said that I took the blame. I mean, Prashamsha Nirila. Okay, so I enjoyed the praise. That's what she said. This is exactly what we are doing. But when you realize that we are not the doer, then even ego disappears. You realize what? So you are nothing. So that's what it means. Said. The divine then takes the burden of works from him. The supreme becomes the doer and the act and the result. You have no responsibility at all. And if you have no responsibility, there can be no anxiety. And if there is no anxiety, you are forever happy and free. So this is what happens when the realization comes. Okay? There is calm, quiet happiness. It may not be ecstasy and ananda, because that's something positive. But this can be something neutral. A happiness which is not really a something to shout about, but a calm, quiet, non-anxiety, if you want. That is what happens. Now we can read the next one. Okay? This knowledge of which the Gita speaks. So, Tarika, yes, you can read. In the absence of Pallavi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ranga. This knowledge of which the Gita speaks is not an intellectual activity of the mind. It is a luminous growth into the highest state of being by the outshining of the light of the divine sun of truth. That truth, the sun lying concealed in the darkness of our ignorance, of which the Rig Veda speaks, Tat Satyam Suryam Tamasi Kshiyantam. The immutable Brahman is there in the spirit's skies above this troubled lower nature of the dualities, untouched either by its virtue or by its sin, accepting neither our sense of sin nor our self-righteousness, untouched by its joy and its sorrow, indifferent to our joy in success, and supreme, all-pervading, Prabhu Vibhu, calm, strong, pure, equal in all things, the source of nature, not the direct doer of our works, but the witness of nature and her works, not imposing on us either the illusion of being the doer, for that illusion is the result of the ignorance of this lower nature. But this freedom, mastery, purity, we cannot see. We are bewildered by the natural ignorance which hides from us the eternal self-knowledge of the Brahman, secret within our being. But knowledge comes to its persistent seeker and removes the natural self-ignorance. It shines out like a long hidden sun and lights up to our vision that self being supreme beyond the dualities of this lower existence. Adityavat prakashayati tat param. By a long wholehearted endeavor, by directing our whole conscious being to that, by making that our whole aim, by turning it into the whole object of our discerning mind, and so seeing it not only in ourselves but everywhere. We become one thought and self with that. Tad buddhyas tadatmanah. We are washed clean of all the darkness and suffering of the lower man by the waters of knowledge. Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha.
Yeah. Okay. So, Sir, explain. We read each sentence quite clear, I think, what he's saying. This knowledge of which the Gita speaks is not an intellectual activity of the mind, because you have gone beyond the mind. When you go beyond the mind and you go into the self, okay, the higher mind, your mind is absolutely silent. Okay? It is not acting anymore and you are not identified with your mind. You are not thinking that you watch your thoughts. You actually see thoughts going into your mind. Okay? So it is not an intellectual activity of the mind. It's a luminous growth into the highest state of being by the outshining of the light of the divine sun of truth. That's truth, the sun lying concealed in the darkness of our ignorance, of which the Rig Veda speaks. That's Satyam Suryam Tamasi Kshiyantam. That's Satyam Suryam. That truth which is like the sun, of the nature of the sun, Tamasi Kshiyantam. It is Tamasi in the darkness. Okay. Then Kshiyantam, same as translating as concealed in the darkness. That's interesting because Kshiyantam normally means to dissolve. So we have to see what it means. The immutable Brahman. The immutable Brahman is an experience of the self. When you are not acting anymore, you are only a sakshi. You are just watching without any emotion, without any thought. The immutable Brahman is there in the spirit skies upon this troubled lower nature of the duality. The level 1 is constantly in motion. And if it is in motion, it is troubled in the sense that there is movement. Even when you are not troubled, you are actually in movement. And all movement is an obstacle to knowing the real thing, because only in silence and transparency that you can know things. But if it is trouble, if the waters are constantly moving, how will you see clearly the bottom? You will not be able to see. The vibration will actually stop you from seeing the bottom. Exactly in the same way, when there are thoughts and emotions constantly going on moving, the truths are not available to you. So that is what I meant by trouble. Trouble necessarily need not mean that the negative trouble. You may be even calm and quiet, but your mind's thoughts and your emotions are moving. And in movement, there is trouble. Okay? Accepting this, the immutable Brahman is there in the spirit sky above the troubled lower nature of the duality, untouched either by its virtue or by its sin, accepting neither our sense of sin nor our self-righteousness. Not the word, self-righteousness. Pretension to virtue. Okay? Because you think that you're very virtuous. If you, this is the hypocrisy that you, when you don't do something, then you are free of that. It's not at all that at all. Okay? You may very well want to do it in your mind, but physically you are not doing it. Okay? It reminds me of that very interesting story of the lady who wanted to cross a river, and there is a man and a yogi. And the lady says, please, I want to cross the river. Why don't you take me across? So the yogi takes her on her shoulders and crosses the river and goes to the other side and deposits her. Then the normal man, in his normal consciousness, he asks the yogi, what have you done? You have touched a woman and you have taken her across. Don't you think it's a sin? So the yogi replies to her, I carried her and deposited her at the other end of the river, and my job is over. I am exactly myself now. But you are still carrying her in your mind. Okay? So that is exactly what is meant by this. Okay? You have to be free of the thing. The immutable Brahman is there in the spirit skies above this troubled lower nature of the dualities, untouched either by its virtue or by its sin, accepting neither our sense of sin nor our self-righteousness, untouched by its joy and its sorrow, indifferent to our joy in success and our grief in failure, master of all, supreme, all-pervading, Prabhu, Vibhu, calm, strong, pure, equal in all things, the source of nature, not the direct doer of our works, but the witness of nature. You are just watching all the actions being done by nature in yourself and in others. You are only watching without judgment, without being affected in any way, but the witness of nature and our works. This witness of nature can be your own nature and can be the nature of other things also. You are just watching, not imposing on us either the illusion of being the doer. You are free now. You are not. The illusion of being the doer is gone. For that illusion is the result of the ignorance of this lower nature. When you are in the lower nature and you are ignorant of your soul, you are identified with your body, mind, life, that is what happens. You think that you are the doer. Okay? And you think that the physical world is all real. But this freedom, mastery, purity, we cannot see We are bewildered by the natural ignorance. Natural ignorance, ignorance of nature. Okay, you have to take it in that sense. And nature is, universal nature is matter, life and mind. And the universal nature, the individual nature is body, vital and mental. Okay? Which hides from us the eternal self-knowledge of the Brahman, secret within our being. Secret within our being, the psychic being. But knowledge comes to its persistent seeker and removes that natural self-ignorance. By yoga, you can get rid of the self-ignorance. It shines out like a long hidden sun and lights up our vision to that self-being supreme beyond the dualities of this lower existence. Adityavat prakashayati tat param. That supreme illumines everything like the sun. Adityavat, like the sun. Prakashayati gives light and clarifies things. By a long, wholehearted endeavor, by directing our whole conscious being to that, by making that our whole aim, by turning it into the whole object of our discerning mind, and so seeking it not only in ourselves but everywhere. That's a remembrance, not only in ourselves but everywhere. We become one thought and self with that. That Buddhas, that Atman. We are washed clean of all the darkness and suffering of the lower man by the waters of knowledge. There is a footnote, we'll read that. Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. The jnana, the knowledge, washes away, okay, settles and shakes off. Nirdhuta, shakes off the sin. So that's what Sadhu is saying. The footnote is, the Rig Veda so speaks of the streams of the truth, the waters that have perfect knowledge, the waters that are full of the divine sunlight, Ridhasya Dhara, Apo, Vichetasa, Sarvatair Apo. What are here metaphors are there concrete symbols. There is a resemblance between the Rig Veda and the Gita. That's what it is. So we have only 2 minutes more. So we will have to stop here. Okay. So knowledge gives equality. That's the whole point of this 2-3 paras that we read today. Knowledge gives you equality, but it's equally true to say that equality also gives you knowledge. Equality is the way and knowledge is the result. When knowledge being the way, equality also comes more and more perfect. That's what it is. Okay?
May I say something?
Go ahead.
You know, Temi Ben once told me that Minidi's voice was very good, but Chom's voice was also better, but she never sang, and she used to get some sore throats often or something like that. You should be knowing better. But Temi Ben appreciated Chom's voice better than Minidi's.
Okay. Right. All right. So we stop here today. All right. And next time. And by the way, note interestingly, same way using the word turning also again once more. The word turning is used, but turning it is the whole object of a discerning mind. Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay. I wish all of you a happy day.
Thank you, Rangana.
Thank you,
And a
Rangana.
constant remembrance, whatever you are doing, do it for the Lord and not for yourself. Okay. Au revoir, everybody.
But you know, Rangana, many times it's very difficult to remember when you are in a joyous moment or some moments that we
Yes,
forgot
yes.
the Lord also.
You are absolutely right, Shilpa.
So much
When you are
involved.
distributing food in the dining hall, constantly keep mother in your mind and heart. But don't make a mistake in distributing. It's difficult, not easy. Of course, it is not easy.
Yes.
But
But
once it
later
is
on,
done, then work becomes a very happy, it becomes full of
Ah.
happiness when you do it.
Yes. But sometimes later, after sometimes we remember, oh, we have not remembered them. That
That's
is that.
right. In the beginning, it's like that. And slowly, whatever you are doing, walking in the street, going for a walk, doing things at home, constantly the remembrance should be there. That should be there. And it will come. Okay?
Okay.
Au revoir.
Thank you.